Alright folks, today we're going to be changing the oil in this 2001 Honda Accord with V6 in it. And I just want to go over and show you that changing your oil is not really that hard. You need to know where things are. Where's the oil filter? Where's the drain plug? How do I check the oil? So this is not, when you do it the first time, it's not something you want to say, I got 15 minutes to do it and then I got to be here. Have a couple hours, because there is certain steps you need to take. Go to your auto parts house. They're your friends right now, and they can guide you as to what type of oil it takes, what type of filter, and you're going to need some tools. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. All right, so if you're going to change your own oil, obviously there's some things you have to buy. It's not free. So the first thing, I suggest getting a set of ramps. You can get them at Walmart or the auto parts store. Because if you go to jacking it up with a jack and then all that, it complicates things. Now, as you'll see when I drive up on these, every once in a while it will slip. One will slip a little bit and your car will drop. Don't panic. It's okay. It's okay. Just back off of them, reset them, and drive them up again. What I found normally is when that happens is you're driving up the ramp a little too slow. Once you start up it, go ahead and keep going. The other thing is when you have a vehicle that's too heavy. Now you don't want to, on these cheap plastic ones, you don't want to stick a 4x4 pickup up on there. Okay, normally those you can just crawl underneath anyway, but for smaller cars, things like that, these work just fine. Been using this set for over 20 years. They've never broke on me, never let me down. The other thing is a socket set. You'll need some sockets. Okay, and this set from Craftsman is real nice. Of course, use it for multiple other things, but got to have some sockets because you got to take the drain plug out. You're going to need a funnel. Oil filter wrenches. Let's talk about those for a minute. Now you got the kind that you can put on your socket set that look like a cup. And I haven't had much luck with those. They're cheap. They don't work very well. I like these swivel-headed type oil filter wrenches. They're kind of a one-size-fits-all. There's two sizes for them. The smaller size for smaller vehicles, and then there's a larger size for your pickups and things like that. So you need an oil filter wrench. Gloves, very important. So when you get ready to do this, I just got done driving the car around and I drove it about 4 or 5 miles. You want that oil on that engine to be warm. You don't want to change it when it's dead cold. Drive it around a little bit so that oil is liable to be hot. Components under are liable to be hot, and they probably will be. So, set of gloves, and these are the rubberized. They're rubberized on the palm, and they work pretty good. I got these at Sam's Club. You can buy a whole pack of them for like 12 bucks, and I've been working off the same pack for 6-7 years now. You're not going to get too many uses out of these. 1 or 2 uses is probably all you're going to get, because you're going to get oil all over the cloth part and you're going to throw them away. And you can throw them away after every use. An oil pan. okay? I really like these kind where you can seal them up. You know, they've got a pour spout on them. So when you get done with your oil, your O'Reilly's, your AutoZones, all you need to do is take this down there, and if you get this kind, you can just carry it in, and they'll dump it for you. So, an oil filter, preference on the brand. I've been using Fram for the 40 plus years that I've been changing oil, so I'm kind of a fan of Fram, but Wix is a good brand. I've used the MicroGuard. I don't think anybody is making a bad filter out there right now. So, you know, your friend here is the attendant at the auto parts store. You know, he can definitely lead you in the right direction. And those guys don't work off commission, you know. They're going to sell you what you need. So talk to those guys. Tell them your make and model, and they'll give you the specifications and everything you need. Oil types, okay? Look at your owner's manual for your vehicle. If you don't have an owner's manual, again, ask the attendant auto supply house, and he should be able to get you set up. Okay, this is not real difficult, and over the longevity of a vehicle's life, if you're like me and you run older vehicles that are way out of warranty, you know, this is going to save you some money. But again, if you're not comfortable with it, take it to Jiffy Lube, you know, have your father change it or your grandfather. You know, if you're not comfortable. But if you're comfortable around tools, this is a great way to save some money. All right, so the first thing we want to do is get the floor clean, or whatever surface you're using. So let's get that all swept up. All right, so after we clean the floor, step 2, let's go ahead and set our ramps and drive the car up on the ramps. So what I always do, I always make sure that my wheels are straight when I get out of the car, when I park it, so you can kind of use the wheels as a judge for your line. And you know, once you drive it up on here, if you notice it's way one way or the other, don't feel bad about it. I've done that. Just back it back off, reset the ramp, and pull it back up. When you're driving up on there, what I do is I put it in gear, and then I put my right foot on the throttle and my left foot on the brake. Okay, and then I ease it up, and once I get the momentum going, then I use my other foot with the brake to stop it. There's some bumpers at the end of these, so once you feel it peak over, you know, go ahead and take your foot off the gas, let it idle up to the bumpers, and just stop. Set your emergency brake. Very important, got to set that emergency brake, okay? All right, a couple little tricks before you get started. So if you don't know exactly where your oil plug is, you need to find out. On my ATVs over here, I actually pulled the wrong plug once and drained all my differential oil out. So if you don't know where the oil plug is, you know, you need to find that out first. So when you get under there, you're going to have your socket. So I'm going clockwise. Just hold the socket. That means I'm going to tighten. I want to loosen first. So I'm going to take my knob there, flip it over the other way. And now I know that my socket is set to loosen. So that's important because you can strip that plug out. And normally your plugs are only about 12 foot-pounds of pressure, which is not a whole lot. Okay, so it's important when you're going to change the filter, take the old filter off, spin it off. They're called spin-on filters. Spin the filter off, and then take some of the residue oil and put it around this rubber gasket. There's a rubber gasket right there. Okay? Now, the other important thing, once you take this all the way off and you have it off, look up at the surface. These rubber gaskets tend to stick on there when you take them off. So what I do is I look up at the surface, I don't see anything, and I'll pull my old filter and look at it and make sure that that rubber gasket came out with it. Because if you put it back up there and the old gasket's still there, when you go to start it up, you are going to have a mess. Okay, because it's just going to pump oil out on the ground. Found that out the hard way. I got to admit it. Got most everything what we're going to need underneath the car. Take it with you. You don't want to do this multiple times. First thing we got to do is figure out what size socket we need. I cheated. I happen to know. I've changed the oil in this car so many times. All right, double check. I'm going to go counterclockwise to loosen. Now I moved the pan out of my way. Then I'll get it started. Then once I've got it to about finger loose, I'll go ahead and put the pan under it. Now while it's draining, is a good time to inspect the gasket. Whoops. There's a little breather on this pan. If you heard that gulping, that was because I didn't have the breather open. So anyway, you can see that's the plug. Hang on. As you can see, that's the plug, and there's a blue gasket on there. So make sure that's intact, or whatever type gasket you have. Many of them have a little O-ring type gasket that's in there. Just make sure it's in good shape. They're reusable. So it only takes just a few minutes to get the majority of the oil out. Sometimes, like when I'm not shooting a video, I'll go do something else and let it drain down a little more. But this car, that's another reason to warm up your car first, so the oil is good and not viscous. It comes out real easy. Okay, so let's put that plug back in. Then you got to reset your socket wrench so it's tightening. Just flip it over. Do not want to over tighten these. All right, so let's go ahead and change this oil filter out. Take our oil filter wrench. Make sure we're going to spin it counterclockwise. And do that in your mind or in your hand before you put it on there. Okay, there we go. All right. Once that's loose, spin it. Now, I don't know if you can see that oil. Let that oil drain down for a little bit. That way you don't get as much oil on your hands. All right, now I'm going to check and make sure that the gasket is still on the old filter, and it is. It's not up there, I can see it. Now I'm going to take my new filter, wipe some oil on it. Just like that, you don't have to do a whole lot. And then insert it. Okay, now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because it's hand tight and then a quarter to a half a turn after that. So depending on how strong you are is how tight it's going to get. But generally speaking, get it as tight as you can with your hand, and then look at it and mark like I can see the fram. So I'm going to turn it a half turn past that. Okay. And there again, you don't want to get that too tight because you'll end up crushing that gasket and it'll make it real hard to get off next time. If you were wondering, there's that vent that I'd forgotten to open. All right, now it's time to go ahead and put the new oil back in. At this point, you can go ahead and use any type of gloves. So I'm going to stick my regular shop gloves on. One thing I didn't mention, if you have a bag of kitty litter, that's always handy to have around. You can get the regular absorbent they have for oil, and it does work better, but if you have some kitty litter, because you're going to have drops and spills, you know, it just happens, especially your first few times changing oil. So have a little bit of that on hand. So when you take your service cap off to put your engine oil in, most of the new ones tell you what type of oil to put in there. So, but all of them are going to say see owner's manual. And the reason for that is because depending on where you live and the temperatures, if you live, say, in Minnesota, you know, you're probably going to use a different weight oil than somebody living in, you know, Corpus Christi, Texas. So bear that in mind. I live in the middle of the country, so I can pretty much just go by what's on the cap. Another thing, double check yourself. Make sure this cap gets back on there. I left one off one time. It was a mess. Yeah, I had oil all up underneath the hood, all over the engine. Took me forever to clean that up. So another tip, always make sure this is back on. You know, I never thought about it. I think I'll stick it in my pocket. That way I won't forget it. Don't buy 5 individual quarts of oil. Buy it like this. It's much, much cheaper. This high mileage that I use, you know, it's $17 for 5 quarts. You can't put it in too fast, so make sure you're in a comfortable position. You're going to be here a little while. So all of these big quarts, and I'll show you here in a minute, they've all got an indicator as to how much oil is in them. They got a clear spot in the back of them where your hand is. So if you buy a 5-quart jug and you only need 4 quarts, you know, you just got to get to where you pour most of it in and then start looking. And it's right there on the back handle. You can see that clear strip. And that, like, I've still got 2.5 quarts left, so I got to put 2 more quarts in. All right, so we're all done, right? Ready to close the hood? No. Because I forgot this. Always double check and make sure it's on. Now while you're under the hood, most of your owner's manuals are going to show you where the windshield wiper fluid is, the power steering fluid. Transmission's really the only thing you can't check at this point. But make sure and check your radiator level, all that while you got the hood open. Windshield washer fluid, got plenty there. Power steering fluid is good. I can't see the radiator. Dang it, what do you do when you can't see it? Get a flashlight. Always got to have a flashlight. And that's good. And the brake fluid. Yep, we're good there. Okay. Now we're ready to start it up. Okay, so now it's probably the most important thing. Go ahead and turn your ignition on and figure out where your oil light is. My oil light is over here. So as I start the car, I'm going to keep a good eye on that and make sure that it goes out. Here we go. Okay, it'll stay on for a little bit, and boom, there it goes, it's off. So that's real important that you do that. Okay, now get out of the car, go check around, make sure nothing's leaking. Alright, we don't see any leaks. Well, that's good. Time to take a good look up top. Make sure everything sounds right. You don't hear any knocking or pinging. The engine just sounds normal. Okay, so let's shut it off and then we'll check the oil level and make sure we got the right amount of oil in it. All right, so let's go ahead and back it off the jack. So I'm going to leave the hood open and we'll check the level. All right, so let's check the oil level. Yes, sirree, right in the middle. I always wipe it down once and stick it back in after it's been running, just to make sure. Because a lot of times that oil will have been splashing up on it and you can't see it clearly. So you may have to do it once or twice, but it's good to go. Now, if you want to check your transmission fluid, you have to make sure that the car is hot. So you would drive it around for a while and then you would leave it running in park or neutral, set the emergency brake, and then check your transmission fluid. So that's the other thing. Don't forget to release your emergency brake when you're backing it off the ramps. I've done that before too. Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe. Let's get out on the water and have a great day.